said, everybody, like, be back on time. So we're going to hand over, I'm going to hand over to Georgia Kirke. So Georgia's the owner of Right Business Results. And so for the last 5 years, she's been helping experienced entrepreneurs build up their personal brands through the creation of expert content. So she specifically centers around books. So Georgia combined her love of books and people with her passion for entrepreneurship to create the book creation process. And over the last few years using this process, Georgia's been able to turn the ideas of hundreds of industry experts into expert positioning books, responsible for generating 5, 6, and even 7 figures of additional revenues in the first 12 to 18 months of publishing, which is super impressive. And that's why she created the 3 simple ways to boost your brand and profits with a best-selling book. So authoring a brilliant book, it doesn't have to be scary, it doesn't have to be stressful, or it doesn't have to be a life-consuming project. And you just need a few simple and proven strategies to help get your ideas off the ground. And then you'll be rolling out your first draft in no time at all. Georgia, over to you. You're going to change our lives this morning. Excellent.
My gosh, well, let's
go. It's all over.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. And thank you everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it. Good morning, Michael. Derek, hello, you're in sunny Birmingham. Wonderful. Derek, fantastic, is writing his book at the moment. So I've got a treat in store. Hopefully you'll see it that way, guys, for you this morning. I'm going to lead you through the 3 core modules that I've actually built a course around this. And this is based on the what I teach with my one-to-one clients when we're doing their one-to-one personal branding consultations alongside putting their books together. So I've kind of condensed that information. So we're going to have a little look today at creating your book first and foremost. We've got a couple of short exercises to do to get the creative cogs going. Then we're going to look at a book launch. What is a book launch actually? Is it just a one-off event, or is it a period of time? And what are the activities that make up a successful launch? And then we're going to look at monetizing your book. So sales strategies, where the money's really made. When we talk about 5, 6, 7-figure returns, some of my clients have actually leveraged their book to exit their business with an 8-figure return on their investment with myself and my team. So when we talk about that, it sounds amazing, but what does it actually mean in practice? Is it available to everybody? And what are some of the things that need to be in place to make that kind of thing happen? So we're going to be talking about 6-figure sales strategies, leveraging your book. So let me just share my screen. I've got some slides here for you, and hopefully I can do this without, there we go. So first and foremost, a little bit about myself and Right Business Results, which you'll hear me refer to as WBR. I know we're a bit of a ragtag bunch, but this is me and my siblings. So I'm one of 8. I'm the oldest of 8 children. We grew up in a farm in North Lincolnshire, and I mean, the nearest road was like 1.5 miles away from the house. So, you know, it wasn't really an option to go out and play with friends. It wasn't, you know, we had to get a lift to the nearest bus stop, which was in a different town. And so our imaginations were a big part of how we formed relationships and how we got along with each other, and storytelling, and in particular for me, books. And my grandmother was a huge influence on me from a very, very young age. And I spent a lot of my childhood with her. I called her Granny. And I will be eternally grateful for everything she did for me. But one thing she did notice was my love of the written word and of books. And she went to huge efforts to kind of nurture that in me. And I think hopefully we all have that one person that we can think back to and think, you know, without their influence, I'm not sure I'd be who I am today. And that person for me is definitely Granny. And there was this traveling library. It's so weird thinking about it now, but as a kid, it was one of the most magical things that could possibly happen on a weekend. I'd be at Granny's house, and there was a couple, and they'd gutted out this old caravan, and they'd fitted shelves along all of the sides and the back, and they were just bookshelves, and they had like ropes, and that held in all the books. And they would go around all the rural villages, and I mean, it makes it sound like we did have a TV and stuff like that. We weren't completely like without any cut off from civilization, but it was very isolated where we were. And so this couple were just dedicated. They were just drive their library around and hand out books to the people that lived in the villages. And so I remember being so small that Granny used to have to lift me onto the steps to get up. And I remember the day I got tall enough to say, it's okay, I can do it myself, because I could, my legs were long enough to climb up the steps. And she let me choose 3 books every time. And then she would help me learn how to read them in the month in between, and then would take them back and swap them for more. And it's memories like that, when I think about what books mean to me and why I do what I do now. I can't imagine my life without them. They've been a huge part of my upbringing, and they formed the way that I think of the world, the way that I've bonded with other people. You know, when I've had challenges I've not known how to solve, I've turned to a book. You know, when I went to university at 18, Granny gave me Richard Branson's book, Screw It, Let's Do It, I think it's called. And she said, you know, you're probably not going to find it easy to go into a normal line of work. You know, what she was pointing to was entrepreneurship, really, but we just didn't know that's what it was. And, you know, she said, you're going to need to look at a slightly different path for yourself to find your way of doing things when you leave university. And I thought, this is someone who's done the same. So maybe you'll get something from his book. And so books for me are completely integral to how we as humans make connections with the world. And so when I set up Right Business Results, what would it be now, 5.5 years ago, my background prior to that was business coaching. And I was working with entrepreneurs who were saying to me, well, how can we get our message out to the world? How can we let people know who we are and what we do? What I do is very unique. My business is something I created out of nothing, out of scratch, out of my own life experiences. You know, how do we communicate this? And so, you know, coming up with this process to help people have access. To me, it was like a book was never a question mark. It was like, oh, it's like they need to write a book. My job, I decided, was therefore to figure out a reliable and repeatable way for them to do that, so that everybody could have access to what I see as pure magic. And this ties in so well with what Claire's been teaching you this morning about building a community around you, because only when you get your message out far and wide can a lot of people see you, and your brand gets a lot of visibility, and you can start to build really strong relationships with them and start to bring people in. And there's a big difference between an audience and a community. You know, with an audience being a large number of people that you reach, but your community are people that you have strong relationships with and have built trust with, they know where to come to you, and you know how to reach them. So here are some of the books that we've worked on. You'll see along the top here, we also work on podcasts and blogs for authors. So, and this is part of the modules I'm going to be teaching you today. Once you have this book, then it's like, okay, fine, now we've got a system we can put a book together with. It's called the book creation process. And we have these modules that we lead authors through. It takes care of the planning, the writing of a book, design, editing, proofreading, publication, you know, all the promotion. But how do you keep a book going repeatedly, reliably, month in, month out, after the initial excitement and the initial launch dies down? So we'll be covering some of that this morning. And a lot of the time it takes the form of other complementary content without having to reinvent the wheel. You may recognise some of the folks on here. I know Simon certainly knows quite a few of them. Dan Bradbury, for example. You probably know Stephen Green over there, Safe as Houses. So we'll be looking at the systems that put books like this together, the results that they get, and how those results come to happen. But first of all, why publish content in a book? So we've talked just now about community and making a connection with people. From a business perspective, why? What's the business case? Well, the first thing is growth, of course. You do this for your clients, and often when putting a book together, people will sometimes run into a bit of writer's block, or they'll have a question mark of like, where do I go from here? How much detail is too much detail, and how much is not enough? And do I include my personal story, which might contain some trauma? You know, or in a business book, is that not appropriate? Or do I allude to it? Or like, do I need a special storytelling technique? All of these questions come up. And that's why we work with a reader avatar. And we're going to go into that in more detail in just a few moments. But the reason that you put a book together, first and foremost, is for your clients, for your community. And when you have that mindset shift from thinking, how do I put a book together that serves me and grows my business, to how do I put a book together that creates an experience for my readers. That's the first step to experiencing real, genuine business growth from as a direct result from becoming an author. So the first thing is growth, focusing on your clients, because it gives them access to your expertise, not just in a manual, like practical, here are the steps that you need to do to implement X, Y, and Z, and go, but you know, your tone of voice, everything that makes you you. And sorry for the language, early, you know, it's not that early on a Saturday morning, but still, hopefully no one's too offended. But if someone is absolutely full of shit, it's very hard to write a very good book. Because there's too much, it's too much of a space to fill with too many words for that not to make sense. Those they wouldn't be able to put together 150 pages of total crap. You might think that a book hasn't been particularly well put together, well written, if it's been done without guidance. You might not agree with the content, but if somebody's like really doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're lying, or they're trying to mislead people, it's very, very difficult actually to put together consistent information in a structure over that many pages with that level of word count. You know, a typical business book is 40,000 words. Some of the traditionally published books that you'll see that get a lot of press that do very well, they're 60 to 70,000 words long. So that's when we talk about credibility from a book. It's a literal physical demonstration of not just who you are, but what you know. And that's very powerful. So it gives you that extra visibility and expanded connection. By that I mean the ability, it provides the ability to others to really see you for who you are, which is incredible. And there aren't many other marketing formats that allow that. Of course they do over time. You know, you can kind of build up a presence on platforms, of course, and that's a very important thing to do. With a book, it's a very nice way to package that and put that together. And the result of that, of course, is your relationships with your community become stronger. The second reason why publish content in a book is legacy. Again, this is, you know, it's what you leave behind. I lost, you know, my granny passed away when I was 23, and I think now with the skill set I've developed now and my ability to put the written word together now, I would kill for a few more minutes with her to just capture some of it, you know. And I think actually, you know, there could be someone in my family that feels the same about me at some point in the future. You know, how many times have you all felt maybe a little lost in your life, or you feel like the black sheep in your family, or you think, God, I wish there was someone who I felt really connected with, who just gets me, that I could take this challenge to, this problem to. And that could be anybody. You know, you could have had an uncle or aunt 3 generations ago who had the same struggles just in their time that you're experiencing now in your time. And hearing those words and having that, it's incredibly comforting, and it could be very transformative. And you have the ability to do that through putting your book together and sharing your story. And even though we're talking in the context here of a business book, that legacy is very, very, very powerful. So it's for your clients, yes, and it's going to provide lots of growth for all involved, yes, but it's also something for your team. After you retire, or you might exit your business, or whatever your bigger picture plans are, you know, you are the person that created your business, so you're going to need a way to instill that part of you in the company's culture and in the company's sort of frameworks. But it's also legacy in terms of your family. So it's a chance for you to tell your story, share your journey, share a bit of how your brain works, your mind works. And it gives a real lasting, it gives real longevity to everything you are, everything that you're working hard to become. And the third main reason is it levels everything up. It's a level up. For you, this is something for you. You know, there are a lot of reflective components to putting your book together. Clients often tell me it's a process of, in a way, validation. You know, when they're going through that consultative process with content, and they're being asked questions, and they're being asked to think about what they do and how they do it in a way that they don't normally get to, because they're normally the ones that are they're leading, they're in charge, they have to be helping everybody else through that, they're developing their team, they're helping their clients. So, you know, for you, when was the last time you had an hour in your week every week that was purely all about you and your role in your business, where somebody else could come in and do the hard work and just ask you the questions that you can just just kind of just sit back and just think and just say out loud everything that you've achieved. And so there's something very powerful about the process of putting a book together. It's not just about the result, but a lot of the transformation happens in the process. Of course, for yourself, the benefits are going to be increased sales, increased business value. We're going to talk about what that means actually in this session, and more brand presence as well. So of course, you get more recognition, you get noticed as those relationships build and you strengthen them, and you're getting more referrals and your name's out there and to a much wider audience. And you're going to not just increase the number of sales, but you're going to increase the average order size of your business. And because you have a book, it's a commercial asset. You're also going to build it into your business processes so that actually it increases the value of your business as a whole. And last but not least, it's boasting rights. I mean, come on, that of course is an ego element to writing a book, and why shouldn't there be? You work hard, you've put in your hours. This is you've done this. And of course, seeing your name on the front cover of a book, there's no reason why. Sometimes people feel guilty about it. They're like, oh, well, it's a bit for me. And of course it's for you. It's a bucket list thing. It's a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of people, although we all know others who've written like 10 books and are loving it. But it's a really powerful personal journey as well. So what are we going to cover then? We've got an hour and 15 minutes together. So we're going to have a little look at where you are now, where you want to be over the next year, and plug that gap in the context of books, book marketing and strategy. So this process and the books that I work on and create are specifically designed to suit entrepreneurs, influencers and leaders. So all of you here, no matter where you are in your business, no matter what your goals are, you're here because presumably you're looking at you're looking to progress. So you have I'm hoping that you're all of the mindset that you'd like to be somewhere very different 12 months from now than you are today. And the book is a big part of that journey and that transition. So the process that I'm about to describe to you and the lessons we're going to go through are all designed for entrepreneurial thinkers, people who want to move forwards, and they want those results. They're not, I know that you all move fast. None of us want to sit about. None of us want to be exactly where we are right now, 10 years into the future. We all want to move forwards in our lives. And a big something that I think is quite sad, really, that I see as a real shame, is when I see people work hard on their books and bring them out, and then after a few months of excitement and posting all the time, nothing much happens. And that's lack of strategy, and it's lack of knowledge, it's lack of planning, just not knowing what to do and when to do it, really. And so I think that's when the opportunity gets lost, and then you see those people maybe form a belief that the book didn't work, or having a book's expensive because they put loads of money into advertising, like Facebook ads or something, trying to shift it, and then it made a loss. Or my publisher, I had a publisher, they said they'd do X, Y, and Z, but then nothing much happened. So publishing doesn't work. It's things like that. None of those things need to be true. It's just being directed in the right places. So I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of becoming a successful author, and I'm also going to show you what to do next to take this training forward. So we've got some really exciting next steps for you. I'm going to cover as much as I possibly can that makes sense to do so in the short time together that we have, but I'll let you know where to go to find out more. So we're going to look at 3 modules. The first is creating your book. The second is launching that book. And the third is monetizing that book. So very, very exciting. And we're going to start now with the create part. So this is where obviously all the hard work happens. It's where a lot of the heavy lifting takes place. The first thing then you absolutely have to do is start with a plan. If you start your book without your plan, it's like you're setting off on a long distance journey without a sat nav. It'd be like me trying to find my way to Kirkcaldy, and I'd probably end up in like Devon and not know what's happened. And it's exactly the same thing with a book. If you don't have that strategic plan in place before you start, that tells you exactly what your book is going to do, how it's going to be designed, and what the outcomes are going to be in the next 12 months. then unsurprisingly, without that, then results don't take place. So what makes a bulletproof book plan? What has to go into this plan and this, by the way, is the backbone of the book creation process. We always work through 5 modules with authors: plan, produce, publish, promote, and propel. Plan, this is a 10-step process that we go through. And the 3 main sort of hallmarks of it are what I'm going to teach you right now. So the first thing is looking at your goals. Putting a 12-month time frame around things gives it a natural sense of urgency, and it also means that you avoid the tendency to just go really big. What do you want to achieve through your business? Well, I'd like to impact 1 billion people all over the world. That can happen, but that strategy is absolutely huge, and it's going to take a long time. Can you do that in 12 months? Probably not, without wanting to be negative or put a down on it, probably not. That sounds to me more like a 25-year plan. It's like what is that? Yeah, it's a large part of the world's population anyway, isn't it? So, but what can you do in 12 months? Well, actually, you could probably work towards getting your business into a position where it's self-managing. You could double your revenue. I mean, you could 5 times your revenue, depending on what your starting point is in 12 months. You could tidy up all of your back-end systems and processes to increase your bottom line and put money in the bank for that big game-changing project that you want to work on and start work on. You can form strategic partnerships that completely change the game. So there's heaps you can do in 12 months. But labeling it as 12 months is important. It keeps it a SMART goal, achievable, realistic. The second thing to look at then is your ideal audience. So whatever your goals are from writing this book in the first 12 months of being published, let's say your book comes out overnight, tomorrow it's live. And so we're meeting again 12 months from today. So now it's April 2022. And I'm going to ask you, what has to have happened? What's going on in your world in April 2022 for you to know that over the last year, that book has done its job? And those are your goals. Now, your ideal audience, i.e. your reader avatar, are the people who you are holding responsible for delivering you those results, for realizing those goals. Now, practically, you're responsible for realizing your goals, but in a book sense, your ideal reader, your audience, the people that you're doing all of this content for, all of your messaging, everything has to be specifically pointed towards them. Whenever an author runs into writer's block and they think, what shall I put here? That's not the question. The question is, what does your reader avatar, let's call him Dave, what does Dave need to know here in relation to this chapter topic? What's keeping him up at night? What are his challenges and obstacles that we need to move past? So identifying your ideal audience, i.e. your ideal reader, is really important, because those are the people who you want to follow your call to action at the end of the book to help you achieve those 12-month results. And so the relationship between the two goes both ways. Now, when you know what you're looking for to achieve through putting this book together from a business perspective, and you put metrics around those goals. So if it's to generate leads, well, how many leads? If it's to increase revenue, by how much, or what percentage? If you want to use it to grow your business, that's quite vague. So, are you looking to increase your bottom line? Are you looking to tighten up your margins? Are you looking to build out a team to make it self-managing? Are you looking to improve your sales processes? Have you mapped out your customer journey? So there are lots of questions, but be as specific as you possibly can with your 12-month goals, and just check in with them to make sure they are indeed achievable and realistic within the 12-month timeframes. Then think about your ideal reader and write down a really, really, really detailed avatar for that person. You might have more than one group, right? And so often, and this is where a lot of authors get stuck, when trying to think of their topic for their book, they think, well, God, it's really hard, isn't it? Because I suppose, I provide X, Y, and Z services, but I could help, I help lots of people. Technically, I could help anybody. The message is universal. Now, if you write for the universe, you're going to come across as a jack of all trades and a master of none. Your message is too diluted. It's not going to land with any one person. The connection isn't going to form. So what you need to do is, if you have a big audience like that, divide them into groups: reader group A, reader group B, and reader group C. And reader group A are your low-hanging commercial fruit. They're the people who are most likely going to follow that call to action and help you realize those author goals, those 12-month goals. Reader group B are people that you do also do business with and want to do business with. You're fine doing business with them, but for whatever reason, they're going to need a little more work or a slightly different strategy. They're not the top priority. Maybe they don't have the right level of budget, but they're still an important part of the audience you serve, for example. And then reader group C is like everybody else, so we're never going to prioritize reader group C with important content decisions. That doesn't make sense. But we want to keep them there and identify them, describe the demographics, male, female, does it matter, age, professional backgrounds, where in the world are they? All of this stuff. So when you imagine reader groups A, B, and C, or just A, if you may have the one, that's brilliant. Then you want to be able to distill this group into one sort of avatar, one individual, and then give them a name. And the more that you can humanize this group of people, and the more you're able to visualize them as a person, the more connected to your reader you're going to become, and that will show through the content you create. And when you know those things, then you can have a think about your topic. And we're going to go through a topic selection exercise in just a moment. There's a nice quick way to decide, well, what am I going to write about? Because I could write about lots of different things. What angle do I take? And of course, that will in part be determined by the structure and vice versa. So the structure of your book is like, what are the chapters I'm covering and in what order? And in the world of business books, there are 7 different ways you could structure your book. So there are quite a few different ones. You see these cropping up over and over and over again as a sort of publishing convention in all different types of published books. So however you decide to order your information, to order your topics, it's going to be a lot easier to make that decision once you're clear on who this is for and therefore what their expectations are of you as an author, what topics they really need help with, and what the overall book has to lend to. If your goal is to impact a lot of people, if it's to form strategic partnerships, if it's to command influence and that kind of a thing, the chances are you're not going to want to write a little 70-page book that has lots of pictures in. The chances are you're going to want what I would call a flagship book, which is like 150 to 250 pages, where it kind of makes a noise when it hits the table and it's impressive to look at, even though statistically most people don't read books all the way through when they're over 150 pages. They're still important to create because of the physical demonstration of expertise, and the ability for people to come back to them over and over again. On the other hand, you may find actually your goal is to nurture the relationships you have. You want a nice referral tool. You want something you can easily hand out. Maybe you're a charismatic type. You're the heart and soul of a dinner party, and you've got loads of stories that you love to tell. And that's how you do a lot of speaking, and that's how you deliver your presentations, your content normally. Then you might choose what we would call the anecdotal structure and just have your book be a collection of stories with lessons that are going to entertain and motivate and kind of energize your readers, and they can be part of your speaking arrangements as well. For example, if that's a goal, then you're going to want that type of a structure versus what we'd call a panoramic structure, which is like parts of the book, and each part has chapters underneath. So part 1 will be a really chunked up topic, something quite big, and then each of the chapters break down that topic, and then part 2 is another chunked up topic, and blah blah blah. And then you can have like 6 parts, each with 3 to 5 chapters, and you've easily got a 200 to 250 page book, or it may be something in between. So a few things to consider there. So here's how to get some clarity on that sort of approach. We may not have time to do this now, but feel free to screenshot this or just make a note. If you've got notebooks there, just scribble a few thoughts down. The first thing to consider is, I'll put all 3 questions up in one go, look, so you can screenshot this if you want to. The first thing to consider is, what do you want to accomplish by writing this book? This is the part of your author goal. What's your big vision? Why are you doing this? And crucially, why is that so important? Why does it matter to you as well as to your audience? Is it that you just want to tell your story because it's in there and it's just time for it to come out? And if it's autobiographical, does it serve an audience? If it doesn't, it's not a business book, it's an autobiography, and that's fine. Just know that's why you're doing it. There won't be any financial returns in there. On the other hand, is it that you want to make a big impact on the world around you and grow your business in whatever shape or form that may take? So just get really clear on what you want to get out of the whole experience of having a book. The next thing is the commercial benefit. So 12-month goals. If we're meeting here again in April 2022, what has to be happening for you to know that your book is really, really doing its job? Write those things down and then be as specific as possible with numbers against all of them. Apply as many metrics as you can. This can change, it'll evolve, but just get really clear, as clear as you can be at this point of time in the outset. And then thirdly, create that detailed avatar of your ideal client, and then make all of your content and marketing decisions about them. None of it's about you, it's all about them. And that's all there is to it. As soon as you put your client at the heart of every single thing you do, that's when you're going to start to see real community forming around your message and your movement. And you're the figurehead of that community, but they're the people that you're serving. And being really, truly in service is just putting your customers at the heart of your operations, everything that you and your team do. Okay, so I'll just, we'll move on now. If you want to screenshot this or write it down, just do that quickly now. Brilliant. And so what happens without these things in place? Well, writer's block's really common. If you try and get into content, if you try and start writing, because sometimes what happens is people will go, oh God, I'm sick of just thinking about this now. I need to get it out of my head and onto paper. I want to book out by this time next year. I don't want to be sitting this in like another 5 years from now. I'm just going to start. And it may start off all right, actually. Like you may get sort of 2,500, 3,000 words out and it'll flow. And then you're like, God, right, okay, well, that was a whole morning. I better go and do my other business activities. And before you know it, you realize, oh, actually, right, well, now I haven't looked at that book for 3 weeks. I'll go back in and do it. And then you look at it again and you're like, huh, this doesn't feel as good as I remember it feeling at the time. It feels like sticky. Something's not gelling. It doesn't even sound like me. Where do I go from here? Maybe I've forgotten it because I've not been on it for a while. I'll read back through and familiarize myself with it all over again. And then you realize it doesn't sort of fully make sense, or there are little fracture points in it and it feels fragmented. And you're like, oh, actually, I was going to talk about that later and I've done it there. What's the score? How do I fix that? And you get sucked into editing and then you start kneading it out. And then before you know it, you're in a mess. And that's usually what happens when books get stuck in hard drives and fail to see the light of day. You just need that strategic plan in the first place. When I'm working one-to-one with clients, it's like a 10-step process. It also goes into things like tone of voice, any like mental preconceptions that you have of what the book's going to look and feel like when it's out there, that kind of a thing. But the 3 points that I've just given you around the purpose, what you want to accomplish, the reader avatar and the commercial benefits are the absolute vital things that you can have in place to prevent any writer's block, to prevent any diluted messaging, and to prevent a disruptive reader experience. At the end of the day, you're looking to provide a free-flowing, exciting experience for your readers. Okay, so there are 4 component parts to then, once you've got this plan in place, what do you do? How do you put this book together? Well, you've got the first part is actually the physical writing. Now, if you're not a writer, how is this going to work? If you're not comfortable writing, you can be given frameworks and tools to help you through the writing, and you can be given accountability. In other words, you can have like an author coach that can lead you through it. That's going to be really, really valuable, and many people really, really enjoy that. But if that's not you, if you know now, like, oh my God, the thought of actually sitting down and putting pen to paper, like, I mean, it's 2 to 3 hours a week for up to 6 months to write a draft of sort of 150-page book. And that's draft 1. There are 3 drafts to any book as a minimum. Then you're going to find it really painful. So what's the alternative? Does that just mean you can't have a book? Don't worry, not at all. It means that you need to have somebody asking you powerful questions so that you can speak the content. And then a tool like otter.ai, if you haven't come across this, It's an absolute godsend. And for those of you on Clubhouse, I'm interviewing the VP of products of Otter.ai in my Building Your Personal Brand room next Friday at 5 p.m. The room starts at 3 p.m. and the interview starts at 5 at Simon Lau. But anyway, I digress. The point is, Otter is AI that just transcribes everything you say. And this can be very powerful. So if you're more of a speaker and you do better just getting into flow and kind of go, just use something like that. And then the putting the manuscript together is a much easier job. Once you've got written content and 80% or more of your chapters in your structure, then you've got the editing kicks in then. So writing to the point where you've got 80% or more content in place is draft 1. The edit is what happens to that draft 1. So a qualified editor, it can't be someone like, sometimes people will say, oh, my friends, you know, offered to do it, or it's a technical expertise and it requires an editor who's trained and qualified. Otherwise things will get missed, and that reader experience we talked about that's so key to the whole thing working is going to get lost. An editor will come in and they'll look for structure, breaks in the structure. They'll look at the quality of the content and they'll assess the tone of voice to make sure that all of this is used. So no matter how you choose to go about your writing, at the end of the day, it's got to be you. It can't be your ghostwriter that comes through in that text. It has to be you as the author, because that's why people are buying the book. So your editor's going to make sure that all of those key things are in place, and they're going to send back the draft to you with their comments in for you to address. That's what a good editor would do. Once you've addressed the editor's comments and the editor's happy, that you can call draft 2. And then it is ready for its proofread, which is its spelling and grammar and making sure the referencing is all right. And again, a qualified proofreader will have their own level of expertise they bring to that. But no book will ever be 100% typo free. So don't worry about perfection, but worry about excellence. It has to be done to a very high standard to be something worthy of representing you and your business and your team. So proofreading is important, but just to manage expectations, even with the best possible software and an amazing, talented, experienced proofreader, there's going to be, there's going to be 1 or 2, probably a few more than 1 or 2, but there shouldn't be many, but a small number of errors. It's just normal. Now, once that's been done, that's draft 2 complete. Draft 3 then is where your designer comes in and you have a beautiful book cover that you're really, really proud of, that's going to catch your audience's attention, that's been done with your audience and your goals in mind and your branding. And you want to use your book design as an opportunity to really stand out, really get your branding out there, because that imagery on your book cover is going to go everywhere online, everywhere anybody could ever find you. It's going to be on all over your social. It's going to be, all over your website. It's going to be, you want to go for total consistency. That's more on the marketing side. We're going to talk about that just shortly, but book design is important. And you've also got the interior, the design of the interior as well. And once you've chosen the type of design you like, and the designer has attached that to the written manuscript, you've got draft 3. And but it all starts with someone to ask you the right questions. That's just it. Down here, getting those words out. Don't worry if you're not a writer. Don't let that be an obstacle. Work with someone who knows how to ask you the right things for you to speak your content instead. So there we go, in a nutshell. Here's something to get you started then with the writing of your book. So to start with, we're not going to worry about technical expertise. You don't have to be a writer to be an author. And it's very important to realise that 2 totally separate roles. Authors are authorities, they're speakers, they are people who claim, literally actually, the word author stems from a similar Latin word, which means to claim an argument as one's own. So this is you owning it, and that's what your topic needs to sort of do. And I talked earlier, well, I've talked the whole time about the importance of putting your customer at the heart of all of your operations and all of your content and marketing decisions. So on a piece of paper right now, we won't have time to finish this in this presentation, but if you write this down, this can be done at any time, and it's very useful to do for any form of marketing, not just coming up with book topics. On a piece of paper, draw 5 squares. Now, and each one's going to have its own title. In the first one, I want you to label it challenges. The second one, label it opportunities. The third one, strengths. The fourth one, weaknesses. And the fifth one, myths. You're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. And then you want to channel that reader avatar. So whatever you wrote down for your ideal client, i.e. your ideal reader, you really want to put yourself in Dave, our friend Dave's shoes. And you, minus the typos, as you can tell, I've done here. I need my own proofread on my presentations, clearly. I want you to write down as many of your ideal reader, your reader avatar's challenges, their opportunities, then their strengths and their weaknesses, and then what myths they believe that are just wrong. As many as you can in 10 minutes. And once that 10 minutes is up, just take a look at what you've got there. And there's a sequence to this. You do this in order. So what are the obstacles they're currently experiencing in their life that is preventing them from getting to where they want to go? What are their 12-month goals? What do they want to be happening by April 2022 that's going to be, show success for them in their lives? Where do you fit into that? So what are the challenges that they're experiencing right now to success? Now, with those challenges removed, what opportunities are then available to them? So if you can help them get rid of those challenges, what are they going to be in a position to take advantage of that's going to help them become more successful? And when thinking of pursuing those opportunities, what strengths do they already have within them or within their companies that's going to help them take those steps forwards? And then the fourth one is their weaknesses. Well, conversely, what are they really bad at? Is it that they don't have any support and it's just them? Are they one-man bands who you're serving? I mean, I'm going on a kind of narrative of you being B2B. I don't know what each and every one of you do in your businesses, but it could be that you want to serve individuals. Either way, what is it that they do not possess that they need to possess in order to go after what they want in life? Because you can help plug those gaps. And the last one is misconceptions. What do they currently believe that isn't necessarily true and it's not helping them, but they've got this belief anyway? And go through this, and basically what you're left there with is ideas for chapters, ideas for blogs, ideas for podcasts, ideas for social media posts, ideas for topics that you can write into your Facebook group, or you may have a community on an app, for example, that really speak to your audience. So let's just have a look at a couple of myths and misconceptions that I see in my industry in writing books. And we look at what some people believe has to be in place in order for them to have a best-selling book. This isn't just any old book, is it? This is a book that represents your business and is going to help you grow, and it's going to help serve a lot of people and impact a lot of people. So some people believe that they have to write their book themselves. As we've already established, author and writer are two separate roles. You can write an entire book without, you can author an entire book without writing a single word. And this is what I do for some of my clients. I've just got a few here I can actually show you. You can look all of these up on Amazon, actually. And in fact, I run a Facebook group called Brand Building and Business Growth for Busy Entrepreneurs. I've got that on a slide right at the end, so you'll be able to copy and paste it into Facebook and find us that way. But pop on into that group as well, because I'm posting there regularly on this and personal branding relating to business books. But a lot of these authors are also in that group. So this one, Be More Kid, it's a best-selling business book, personal development. It was brought out by Wiley Capstone, who are the publisher, in November. The authors, Mark and Nikki Taylor, were the world's first married couple to qualify as master NLP practitioners, and their client, Ed James, is a heart radio host in the Midlands. You have to forgive me, I can't remember who it was that said they were in sunny Birmingham, but if you tune into Heart, then I'm sure you will have heard Ed's wonderful voice at some point. And so they wanted to write Be More Kid. The whole topic, the whole concept of Be More Kid didn't sort of exist. They had the ideas when they came to me, but it wasn't called Be More Kids, and it wasn't this formed, branded concept that it became through the creation of the book. And this whole wonderful, amazing book was put together without any of them writing a single word. And we did that through that process of questioning and allowing them to get into flow and just share. And then my team kind of crafted that into a written manuscript, and we did the design. And actually, they called it Be More Kid because the concept was about how, as adults, we lose that childish, fun, and we take everything too seriously, and we get really stressed and we burn out. and how we can all just channel being more like kids to just be a bit lighter in life. And off the back of this, they've been able to create a Be More Kid training that they go into companies to do as well. Ed's been able to help people on the radio using this concept. Loads of stuff has actually happened. They've started a whole new business actually around Be More Kid. We created the emoji for the O in more, and they actually have trademarked this whole thing now, so that they own this. So it's become a business in its own right. It was endorsed by Alison Hammonds, the TV presenter, who I was going to say who we all love. I don't know anyone who doesn't love her. Who said, "OMG, this book is so me." And it was also endorsed on TV by Sarah Stirk and Ben Shepherd. So all of that was done without them being writers, but simply stepping into their own as authors and being very, very good at it. But you or someone you know can check the book, can do the editing. That's definitely fiction. That's a myth. Please don't do that. It does, editing and proofreading are really important roles in the quality of any book, and it really affects the results you're able to achieve through the marketing. Design and marketing will sell the book itself. So I know lots of people who are rushed putting a book together. So they would probably have found everything I've just covered really tedious, because they're like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll just put it together. The important thing is we get it out there. The important thing is we just start, make it happen. The marketing is what I'm good at. I'm going to focus on that. Well, the issue with that is that nobody buys anything without reading reviews anymore. Word of mouth is everything, and online presence is everything. And your book reviews visible to the whole world on Amazon reflect the experience your reader has with your book. So unless it's well put together, it's going to be less able to help people. And the design, well, I mean, technically, yeah, that someone could look at a good book cover and decide they want it, but they're just going to scroll down and read the reviews, and it's going to say, well, the book was a bit sparse, or I didn't really understand. But it's going to come across, and that will significantly inhibit your results. So the effort you put into the creation of the book will pay dividends when it comes to the marketing. The content is key. Let's talk about something exciting then. Let's go into the actual launch of a book, and then from there we're going to talk about monetizing. I just want to check in with everybody. Haven't been, as you can probably see, but I'm screen sharing. I'm just going to have a look at some comments. Yeah, otter.ai, Maria. Yes, it is. So otter.ai, it's available on, I think it's Android as well as iPhone. Really fantastic. Oh yeah, thank you, Claire. There we go, answering the question. Really fantastic tool. Yeah, brilliant. Disruptive reader experience, Derek. A disruptive reader experience, thank you for that question, is when a reader is when a book doesn't flow. So you may be reading a book and you're kind of like, oh, hang on, they're talking about this bit here. Weren't they just mentioning that 20 pages ago? Or like, is it just me, or have we not just covered this? Or hang on, how have we leapt from that topic there to this topic here on this page? Have I missed something? It's just uneasy. A smooth reader experience is when the reader just can't put the book down. It's just a page turner. It's so well constructed that they don't want to leave the book. And that can come up again in the marketing, by the way, Derek, and everyone else as well. When you talk about the reader experience in the my mind has gone blank, which is so annoying. Disruptive reader experience. Where on earth was I going? I might just have to come back to this, actually. Sorry, I don't know what just happened there. Saturday brain. Yeah, okay, sorry about that, guys. I'll come back to it in the questions. But to answer the original question, Derek, disruptive reader experience is just that kind of uneasiness you want to avoid. You really just want people to just be able to oh, sorry, that was it. Flow through the book. So, for example, the book's call to action. How are you going to, how are people going to follow up with you? You don't want to sell throughout the book because it's going to turn people off. They'll put it down, they won't go back to it. If you wait until the end, well, statistically, we know that most people don't read books all the way to the end. They read it till they get their light bulb moment, and that's all they need. You just don't know what that light bulb moment is going to be to each and every reader. So you want to make sure the book's full of them. One thing you can do is use QR codes strategically placed throughout the book that lead people to a resources page, and they can get special resources that build on the concept. So they can get access to you and more, and you get their email address. without them actually having to leave the book itself, so they can carry on getting all of that good stuff. So just really thinking about your reader and what they're going through as they're reading the book, and taking care of that through your content. So when it comes to a book launch, then let's get to this exciting bit, a book launch. So this is how I consider a business book. It's it's a piece of evergreen content. By evergreen, I mean it'll keep on working for you forever. That you can plug into any type of campaign, online or offline, to continually create new strategic advantages for you, your clients, and your team. In other words, a successful business book is a book that works over and over and over again over time. It doesn't run out. The information doesn't get old. There might be some factual things you need to update. You can do a second edition, it's no problem. But the core book itself and the concept, when it's put together well and it's marketed right, it will be working for you 2, 5, 10 years from now, no problem whatsoever. That's what you want to do. It's not going to like run out next year. So what is a launch then to make that happen? Because this is like the first interaction the general public are going to have with your book once you've created it or as you're creating it. So pre-launch is 3 months before the book comes out. So whether you're self-publishing, whether you're lining up a publishing deal, you want to start drip feeding bits of information out to your community online and offline about 3 months before it's out. Anything before that, and you run the risk of the messaging getting old or evolving before the book's ready, and then it's going to be, you're gonna have to change it. So it will all have been a bit pointless. So keep it to sort of 12 weeks before the book's coming out or sooner. Don't leave it too close to launch, because otherwise then you're just suddenly going to be like, I've got a book, and then there's no lead up time to it. So you've got this kind of like soft run up that kind of increases in intensity the closer you get to publishing day. Then you've got go live. This is the day the book becomes live on Amazon. And you've got a critical period when that happens of about a week for the book to be a real strong chance of getting that #1 bestseller status. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec, how to get that bestseller. But broadly speaking, particularly on Amazon, and a lot of us will be self-publishing books. So if you're self-publishing your book on Amazon, you want to, there are 2 categories that you can put your book into within your Amazon account when you set that up. But not many people know you can actually have it in 10 categories. But you have to do the other 8 after the book's published directly with Amazon. You can't do that automatically through their system pre-publication. So when your book goes live, you want to have a look at what other books are in other categories live on Amazon. Pick the ones most relevant to you, being mindful that if you only pick categories that have really big current books in doing really well, your book's unlikely to outsell them. So balance that out, but you do want some popular categories, because that's where most people will go to find books like yours. So get some popular categories, some less popular categories, and make sure you've got your book in all 10, because you can be a bestseller in any one of those 10 categories, so you increase your chances. So in that go live time, that go live week, that's also when you'll be messaging your list to be like, it's here, it's here, it's here. You want to drive sales traffic to the Amazon page for your book. So that essentially the way the algorithm works is at the spike in sales, so in that moment in time. So on launch day, what campaigns have you spent the last few months putting into place that everybody's waiting and ready for it? You've got some offers, maybe some incentives, maybe something on pricing, maybe if they get the book and they send you proof of purchase or they review in a certain time period, they win something. However you're motivating people, have this all set up and running, all of your systems, so that there's a push of traffic to the Amazon sales page in the same period of time. But then you also need a way to keep the sales going, because your book will accumulate algorithm points day in, day out. If you sell 20 on one day and 0 the next, you're going to have less points on day 3 than if you sell 20 on one day, 10 the next, and 5 on day 3. So find that initial spike in sales, a way to do that, and then you want to kind of keep whatever your numbers are, just a way to keep it consistent. And that shall go live. That's like the first sort of week really of publishing. And then post-launch, it varies from author to an industry to author to industry, but typically about 3 months after your book goes live, you've got this sweet spot where it's very, very noisy in terms of marketing, posting, people need to be aware that it's there. You want to be engaging in conversations everywhere around the key concepts of your book. Here's the pitfall though. where people go, I've got a book, I'm finally an author, I've got a book. And that's what they post for this whole 6 months. Help me choose my book cover, I've got a book coming out. My book's finally live, go buy my book. Did you buy my book yet? Because it's already out, buy my book. And while that's important and people will be happy for you on a personal level, that's not necessarily marketing. That's that, you know, a little bit, but outside of your immediate connections, friends and family, not that many people are going to go and buy a book based on that messaging. They're going to be happy for you, but it's not a six-figure sales strategy. What you want to be making a lot of noise around instead is the key themes within the book, so the messaging. That's what people are looking to make the emotional connection with. So be posting a lot around that. Now, what happens after those 3 months, and for you, it might be 6 weeks or 2 months, it kind of varies, it does depend. But what happens after that is when, if nothing changes and no consistent marketing strategies are in place to keep the messaging going, to keep the branding aspect of the book going, then it's going to fall flat and no one will ever hear of it ever again. So the monetization aspect are this is what makes it evergreen. It's those ongoing strategies post-launch. But this 6-month period around a book going live is where a lot of the activities take place. And these are the sorts of activities that you're going to be looking at doing in that time period. You can have launch events soon, hopefully in person, but maybe for now, events like this. You can do like micro events. They've been really popular for book launches through lockdown, where you have a series of smaller events, or maybe you hook up with an influencer in your niche and you go live on their channel. So don't worry about hosting it on your channel and it all being in your thing. This is about branding. It's about exposure and getting access to more people. So here are some offline book marketing examples, so non-digital examples, even though the example I just gave was an online version of a book launch, but still. This refers to, so launch events where you're getting people together. Clients and referrals, you may choose to gift your book to clients and key referrals. It's a rather nice incentive. At the end, if you're delivering things like training online, why not have a form that people can fill out? If you're happy with this, is there anybody else you want to have access to these concepts? Because the concepts are in the book, and so they get a copy of the book, as a result of being referred, and so does the client. It could be that you send them out in the post. It could be that you give them in person. When you're doing live events, it could be like preview events, I call them, but taster events, workshops, main speaking gigs. You want to be packaging. So what you can do is price in a number of your books into your speaker fee. And then, but you always do it a lesser number than the number of people that are going to be in the audience. And the event organizer says, oh, brilliant. Well, you even included 30 copies of your book, but what about the other 80 that are going to be there? And then you go, oh, okay, fine, well, we've got bundle pricing on that. So if they, you've got to buy a minimum order of 20 for this much or 50 for this much. So figure out a way that you can kind of work your book into these human interactions that you're having. Events in your community, local bookshops, for example, community events in terms of like other businesses, perhaps. It depends on where you live as to what these might be, but what are some of the ways you can work your book in there? Guest articles on the key themes of your book that you can submit to perhaps local magazines, local press as well. People underestimate this, or they feel it's unavailable to them. There's loads of ways authors can get into the press, local newspapers, business hours on radio stations. All of that's available. You need a bio and a copy of your book to send them, and it tells them all they need to know. Also, a lot of local publications are very interested when somebody does something phenomenal like becoming a published author, especially a best-selling author. It's a good book. So definitely be sending in submissions. Check the publication for their own submission guidelines, otherwise it won't get read if it breaks the rules of what they accept. But guest articles are a great way to access somebody else's audience and make them part of your audience. Radio we've discussed. Within the book itself, marketing within the book itself, this is key. So one of the best ways to really build a brand and build a community and build a concept around your book is to make sure that you have an excellent foreword contributor. And this needs to be someone separate to the author, who's a superstar in their field, likely to be known to your readers, your particular reader avatar. And really think big with this. Don't be sort of put off by thinking, oh, well, they're probably out of my league, or can I have that person write my foreword? You definitely can. Gavin Scott here, Finding Gold Dust. Gavin's a speaker and he trains corporates on how to improve their customer experience. Gavin's book came out the week before Christmas. It went to Amazon number one in 3 different categories. And by asking around and asking for introductions, you can see, you probably can't see this on the front cover from that distance, but he got it endorsed by Lee Cockerell, who's written like over 30 books. He's the executive vice president of Walt Disney World Resort. I mean, in terms of an endorsement, it's absolutely phenomenal. And of course, then you take the best sentence from your foreword, put it on the front cover of the book, put it on the Amazon sales page description. The Be More Kid guys did this with Alison Hammonds. They've got Ben Shepherd and Sarah Stirk on the back. They've got a Michelin-starred chef that's did them a quote on their sales page. Who else have we got here? Caroline Sanderson, The Salon Jedi. Hers came out in September. #1 bestseller in 7 different Amazon categories. And she's always followed the teachings of John Assaraf. And so she wrote to him and said, would you endorse this book? You're mentioned in it, and you mean a lot to my audience. And he did. So she's got John Assaraf on the front cover, and on the back cover. And you can also, when you've got your second draft done, send it off to more than just one person. Look at all of these quotes that she got from all of these. She's got John Assaraf, she's got Howard Lim, people who are really prominent in business as well as in the salon industry that this book was written for, all endorse the book and then put together on a page full of endorsements. How is that for social proof? Because that's what's really going to help you sell this book. Harry and James Price, they run UK football trials. So it's one of the main ways that young players get scouted into big teams. They've got a quote from Mickey Adams, ex-Southampton player and Leicester City manager, just by asking. So there we go. Social proof within the book itself, it's absolutely key, because once you've got it in the book, you can use it anywhere else in your marketing outside of the book. And that's really going to encourage people to engage with the book and with you, because it raises your credibility. And you can see some of the other ways right here. Now, how to launch your best-selling book. What are some online book marketing examples? I'm sure Claire has already talked to you a lot about LinkedIn and building community online, and of course social media is really important. So your book needs to go everywhere anybody's ever going to look for you and what you do. It needs to be the same design, consistently available. I'll show you Doug Bennett's book, Goals Do Come True. You will notice now that this particular colour red has become part of Doug's branded colour. He's getting a website, dougbennett.co.uk, done around this whole thing. The podcast cover art is based on this book cover. It's going to be on his blog. It's everywhere now. This has become Doug's brand. And he didn't have a brand before this. He had a really generic website around financial planning. Doug, if you're on this call, sorry, but I think that's what you would say as well. And this notebook here on the front cover of his book, if you can see this in the camera, is actually his actual notebook. This is a scanned copy, that's his handwriting, and that's the whole premise of the book. He wrote down his goals every year for 10 years and went from on the verge of bankruptcy to selling his business for over £1 million between 2010 and last year, and wrote the book about it. So social media, very important. Get those quotes to get your social proof everywhere. Set yourself up with a nice author landing page. Be making sure you're building your email list using your book. So do you have a form that you can put as the call to action on your social media posts and in your group to say, like this post, put your name down here to find out when I share more insights on this, or to join the newsletter, which will come to you every month, building on what we've just discussed. So build your email list as well as engage the people already on it with the messaging in your book. Create programs around it, put some paid advertising, put some funnels around it. If you're not known at the moment, if you don't have a profile, you can use, do like an awareness campaign with some videos that share, the key messaging from your book. But the point is, the book goes everywhere. The book is the common thread throughout your entire business. Writing blogs based on the key themes is really important, because it turns your landing page or your website into a resource that people can come back to over and over again, rather than like a static business card. And of course, with SEO, keywords you know, you can use that to raise the profile of your book and vice versa. And I would also, I mean, you can have downloads and everything, turn it into an ebook for free. Kindle have created some software called Kindle Create. And so you just upload your book file into that if you have a book already, or if you have an existing ebook that you want to get onto Kindle without paying for a designer, just download Kindle Create, upload the file, and it will spit back out a really beautifully designed Kindle version for you to publish on Kindle and have an ebook campaign. So just to distill what we've just discussed there, how to launch your best-selling book, the marketing and the content are equally important. Good marketing campaign won't last very long if the content's rubbish, and the content can be great, but if you don't put it out there in a strategic, consistent way, it's not going to go anywhere. No one's going to hear about it. And taking the long view pays. It definitely does. You want to be thinking at least a year into the future when it comes to building a brand using written content and having a best-selling book. You want to be thinking, you know, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years from now. If you do have a big moonshot, like a 25-year goal, like impacting 1 million, 1 billion people, working your book into reverse engineering those strategies, working back to what that means for you now within the next year, quarter on quarter, month on month, taking the long view phase. It's not a short-term project. Book marketing certainly works best with a plan. Don't do it willy-nilly, and don't just do your existing marketing and hope that it'll work better because a book's now in the mix. Doesn't necessarily work that way, and one size doesn't fit all. So it needs to be tailored for your business processes and your company culture, but more importantly, your ideal customer, front of mind, heart of operations. So we've just discussed it. So I'll recap on this quickly, but I want to move on to monetization because we haven't got that much longer left together. We're now 12:05 and this room runs until 12:30. So I'll do another 10 to 15 minutes, answer some questions. I am running a special Q&A just for all of you who have listened today, with some dates next week and the week after. So don't worry if you have questions that don't get answered today. Just join me in one of those calls and I'll go through them with you in a one-to-one format without the presenting. But with the bestseller campaign, as I've said, it's important you utilize your categories on Amazon. So you can still do this if you have a book already that you want to revive, or if you're bringing a book out, again, you can do it from scratch. Put the book into the two most likely categories within your account. Research what other 8 categories you'd like your book to go in, where it makes sense for it to be in, and it can realistically compete in. Call up Amazon via the help support within your Amazon KDP account. That's if you've self-published, and give them those categories and say, I'd like to get my book into these other categories. And then you can do a relaunch campaign, get some fresh activity around, drive the right sales traffic. Whoop, it's gone to drive the right numbers to your Amazon sales page so that you can get number 1 in any one of those categories, or more than one category, as Be More Kids and Caroline and Gavin and Doug have done. And then over time, how are you going to keep those sales consistently trickling over every time? Because it works on a points basis, basically. So on day 1, let's say you sell 10 copies, you get 10 points. On day 2, you sell another 10 copies, you get another 10 points. You also get 5 points from yesterday's sales. So now you've sold 20 copies, but you've got 25 points, and so on and so forth. So that's why the consistency over time is also important. And that's what keeps you buoyant in the bestseller rankings. And we've already met these guys. Here we go. So this is Caroline's and a bit more close. And you can look these up on Amazon if you want to know more about the things. And this is Gavin's climbing the ranks. So down here, you can see it was number 3. And then the next day it went up to number 2. He was sending these screenshots, putting these on social media, and everyone was really rooting for him. And it encouraged even more sales as people could see it climbing. And look at these amazing reviews, following up with people to get the reviews, which is really important. And of course, getting Lee Cockrell to endorse his book, who we had no prior contact with whatsoever. So let's spend a few minutes looking at where the money comes from, and then I'll come back to the chat and answer some questions. This is the framework that we lean into with all of the personal branding calls. So it's all very well having this amazing book, but how do you actually turn that into business growth? Now, this is all the sort of types of content, you know, that works online. Books, blogs, and podcasts are what I call heavyweight types of content, because books, they're permanent. No one really throws away a book. They're given as gifts, you know, they're valued, they're obvious credibility. Blogs keep your website buoyant in searches and SEO and give you an opportunity to keep the conversation going in real time. They turn your website into a resource rather than just a sort of static online out of date thing. And podcasts allow you to actually converse with your audience. And they're an incredible, very easy way for authors to keep the key themes from the book going. Now, here's a trick, because otherwise you're going to be looking at this going, my God, well, this is like 2 full-time jobs and I've already got a business. So how am I going to do this? Well, you get the key themes from your book, or you do the exercise I showed you earlier, challenges, opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, myths of your audience. You then do podcasts around those key themes. Use otter.ai in the background. Then you've got transcripts for your blogs, and they go out every week. Or if you're more of a writer and you prefer blogging, write the blog and then refer to that, speak it for your podcast. Then you take the key sentences, quotes, phrases. You can have guests obviously to interview as well, and they share it with their audience, which gets it out further. Take the key snippets, turn those into an audiogram, or you can just publish those, put them in canva.com to turn them into social media posts and put those around your communities. So then these types of online content become the supportive content to your main content. So for example, if you're really active on LinkedIn and that's where your business community is, are you in all of the LinkedIn groups? Are you posting daily, but not too much? So you want to keep, obviously, Claire will have told you about this earlier. So you want to keep your posts really high quality and the things that mean the most to your audience. And then you've also got stories that you can utilize. Is your bio completely filled out? Do you have a company page as well? Are you uploading your blog as native content to LinkedIn, which has great SEO, as well as on your website? So you're looking to repurpose content, not reinvent. And the same can be said for all of the rest of this stuff. Once you've got your book, you can easily use that structure to turn it into a course. And I actually have an example of this I can send you the link to, just so you can see exactly how this talk is also a course. Emails, well, it doesn't matter if you're not a copywriter. Can you just share snippets from your book, for example, and build it into a nurture campaign, with the call to action being to pick up their copy? So this is, there's loads of different ways to make this system work. Downloads, well, what are the 10 chapters in your book? Why don't you turn that into a PDF document called the 10 simple steps to X, Y, and Z? And obviously having your branding consistent throughout your book, your podcast, everything that you're doing online. Once you've got this content marketing system, this personal branding system using content in place, you're likely going to need to have built systems around it to keep it all going as well. But the point is, the money is made in your business systems and processes and the way that you leverage content. It's not in book sales. So here's the thing. If you're selling your book for £10, Amazon or your publisher are going to have like a cost of manufacturing that book, which could be as much as 50% if it's a traditional publisher. If it's Amazon, it's probably going to be more like 30% or something. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you self-publish. You're selling your book for a tenner. The cost of printing that book and everything from Amazon that Amazon are doing is, say, like £3.50. So they say, right, okay, the minimum cost of your book is £3.50. You have to sell it for more than that. So you sell it for a tenner. Then you've got £6.50 profit. Amazon are then going to take up to 70% royalty from that profit, right? So you're basically left with like a quid or something, £1.50. So you're never going to make your 6 figures from book sales, because if your profit's £1.25, you're going to have to sell 80,000 copies in your first year to make £100,000. So don't worry about that. It's book sales are nice to have. A lot of people even donate them to charities they care about. The leverage comes from how you work the book into your business process. So can you create supporting content using your existing book content, or other way around? Do you have a blog or a podcast or loads of posts or a Facebook group? How can that information be categorized into book chapters? So you don't need to reinvent everything all of the time. You just need to give enough people enough exposure to you over enough different platforms in enough different formats for them to get to know you and come back into your systems. You can create new products and services such as training and online coaching programs using your content. You can obviously increase your presence and availability because it's a one-to-many business model, not a one-to-one. You can start new conversations. An example of this is, as I mentioned earlier, someone I know actually he got 2,500 copies of his book printed with a private printer. Didn't even publish it, not even self-published. We just finished it and he got it printed for, because he did it at that volume, he got it for about £2.15 a copy, £2 a copy. He spent just shy of like £5,000 getting these copies printed. And then he shipped them out to all of the companies he'd love to work with, either as clients or, you know, in the future, he might exit his business. And it actually, it worked. And one company gave it to another company. And basically, it worked out that they called him up and said, we want to buy you out. And it happened a year and a half sooner than what he had in his business plan. And he actually, and then the company who acquired him got acquired by a very large streaming services organization. And it resulted in an 8-figure exit. So please don't underestimate the power of the book, but equally don't be intimidated by what could happen when you have a book, because you don't have to do this all singing and dancing 8-figure campaign. You just have to put it in the right places to get you the sort of returns you want. Another way of looking at how to get 6 figures from using content is to say, well, you just need to use your content to nurture a relationship that could bring in, you know, £10,000 clients, and just look after those 10 really, really, really well and get referrals. But you know, you just need those 10 and get them to renew. That's it's less than £850 a month that each one will be paying if they're paying you £10,000 a year. So how can your book lead into that conversation? Can you structure your coaching program using the key themes, or can you make a book out of something you're already delivering? So basically use your book as the common thread. So let's have a look at some more of these sales strategies. It's 12:15. I'm just going to spend another few minutes doing this. We're going to wrap up and we have a little time for questions, and I'll tell you about how to get onto this Q&A call I've put together for next week as well. Premium price services. So as I've just said, you know, sort of premium price services are really sort of 5-figure services, sometimes more. How can you put those together and consistently deliver them? And this is where people are really getting the best of you. And you want to be sharing some of those concepts through your content. You know, don't hold back when you're doing your personal brand and you're looking at, what do I post? I don't want to post all of my how. Don't be shy. Don't worry about it, because not many people are really honestly going to implement it. Not many people are that determined to want everything for free that they're going to want the same pain that you've been on to get to the point where you figured out the solutions that you have. People will pay to work with an expert, and they'll pay more. They'll pay more than a non-expert. So how can you work your content into premium price services? How can you use it to encourage referrals? Not just any referral, but high quality referrals. Do you have a qualification criteria for your ideal client, i.e. your ideal reader? And is that advertised anywhere? Do people know what it is? Do they need to have a certain budget to work with you? They need to have been in business or doing something for a certain period of time. And how can you ask for those referrals using your book? It's a perfect referral gift. Courses and downloads we've discussed. Shortening your sales cycle. Well, when you have a book, the conversation will very quickly turn to, okay, it's all right, I've consumed your content. I get who you are and what you do. Now let's talk about the commercials and how we can work together. Daniel Priestley talks about needing a certain number of hours over a certain number of platforms. I'm pretty sure it's 1174. I'm sure someone will correct me. Do correct me in the chat if I've got that wrong. Sorry, I'm just checking in with these questions just to make sure there's nothing else before I cover the last of this. Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, fab, right. I'll come back to these questions in just a sec, guys. Yeah, so shortening your sales cycle. So when you've got, so say you've got like 11 hours of, I think it's 11 hours of content in 7 different formats across 4 different platforms is what he says generally people need to feel comfortable doing business with you in this day and age. So there are, and I've heard way different versions of this as well, but let's just, it's a principle, right? And they're not that different to one another. So let's just say, do you have all those hours of content? Do you have 11 hours of content? Let's say you produce a book like Be More Kid that's 220 pages long. Well, that's going to take someone between 3 and 5 hours to read. That's just one book, and it's like half the time. Where's the rest of it? Podcasts, 20 minutes to 30 minutes an episode. We'll get a weekly one out discussing use it to build your platform to get them ready for your book launch, and then use the book launch, this email subscription link in the podcast episode and in your intro and outro that they hear every time an episode starts and finishes. Use it on your, your Amazon sales page. So get that content out there. Don't wait for perfection. Do it. But if you're doing something like publishing a book, get professional guidance, because it will make a difference. So I'm now in a position where I'm on Clubhouse all the time. I'm in my Facebook group multiple times every week. I've got a private author group specifically for one-to-one clients that I'm also in every week. I'm very, 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 very customer centric. And so I'm at the point now where 5.5 years into my business, I can honestly say that regular sales calls take place where they go, it's fine. I've listened to about 20 hours of your content online. I have a podcast as well, interviews with experts. And when the new website comes out, you'll see all the blog content we've been working on as well. So, and it just takes time out of the sales process, very valuable. Social media presence and social proof, as we've already talked about. Speaking gigs, include your book in your speaker bio and make your bio branded and just visually appealing, and break down the key themes into like a model that you can easily teach in your speaking gigs and get that sent out to event organizers. Leverage it for new business, leverage it for repeat business with your existing clients. If they've been a client for a while, do they know who you are and what you do still? Or do they need a bit of a refresh? They'd benefit from your book. And reactivate clients you've let go cold. Assess your ideal client avatar. Now you've got your reader avatar. Do you need to kind of upgrade what you offer and who you're working with? And how do you go about attracting those larger checks? Increase your fees, because people will pay more to work with an expert. Build your messaging into your company culture, and you'll attract better team members when you're ready for that level of growth. Write into organizations and publications to get your message out there. Media and PR is available to you. There's a great, she's called Maya Riaz, if you look her up. She's recently become the PR representative for Meghan Markle. And she founded Social Media Kindness Day, and she's got an offer actually on at the moment via her Instagram channel, where she's giving away a PR pack, which is brilliant, and supporting content. So very, very lastly, and this is the last slide before we'll wrap up, I just want to go through these 6-figure sales strategies, thinking of the different ways then that you can monetize your book and make 6 figures in your first year of publishing. The first one of these is synergy. So 5 ways to make £100,000 in a year with your book. Make sure your book and its theme, the language and art are everywhere. Anyone you target will interact with you and your business. They need to immediately understand who you are and what you stand for, and the book needs to be readily available to buy. Where else can it go apart from Amazon and on social media and on your site? What about your team? Are they also promoting your book? What about email signatures? Can it go in there with a click through to the sales page? What about the background of your Zoom calls? How about how it's incorporated into the backstage of your business, as well as the marketing, the public facing side? What about the other content that you offer? Do you and your team live and breathe the principles shared in your book? Is the knowledge that you share in your book integral to everything else that you do, and vice versa? It needs to be consistent. It can't be a standalone item. It has to be part of your customer's overall journey with you and your business, so that there's an experience involved, not just a standalone object. So how can your book lead to a positive customer experience throughout your entire business? Number 2, signposts. So where are you positioning yourself in your book? Everybody's overwhelmed by messaging. They need directing clearly on where to go to get what they want. So use your book as a signpost to guide your audience. If there's a buy my book, give them the link. If it's sign up to check out the website to find out more, give them the link. If it's a specific blog article, hey, I heard this thing in the news recently. I actually wrote a blog on this last month. Here's the link. I'd love to know your thoughts, and was this helpful? Have you shared your book and your story with the press? So build your presence, do some speaking engagements, You know, use calls to action, very important. Are you using any, or are you just hoping people will like it and click and find you? They won't do that. They won't be proactive. You've got to tell them where to go. Are you running any ads? Are you building a community? You know, create spaces for people to spend time within, to get to know you and your team. Social is about social connection, not rather than social media, although obviously that's a big part of it. So don't just kind of, the work isn't done once the book's published. You know, don't sit back and wait for money to come in. Keep people engaged. Really kind of understand that your readers, they're not just cold leads. It's a social experience. They're trying to connect with you. They want to keep on building that relationship with you. So how can you keep that going? Can you put things in your book to keep the connection going? We discussed QR codes. Obviously, just keep on top of the URL, make sure it doesn't break and it's always up to date. So use it as a hallmark within your community. Keep on referring to it. Service, develop or further promote your premium services and other educational or practical resources that you can provide. We talked about 10 clients at £10,000 each is 6 figures in a year, but you can go way above and beyond that. You know, you could, for example, if you've already got that kind of a program and you've already given your book out to clients, why not make a strategy day that you sell for like £100 plus VAT or £97 plus VAT, and you know, use your book as a part of that. They get a copy of the book and then you teach them the key themes, and then you can sign them up into your higher priced products from there. So how can you enhance the service you're already offering? How would you score your customer service out of 10 right now? And what are some of the things you can do to move the needle closer to that 10? And how can your book be brought into that process? It's that service as well. And then systems. Once you've got all this up and running, what automations do you need to keep it all going smoothly? How can people keep on kind of being led through the customer journey with you? Use as your book as the kind of like the thing that's holding their hands and pulling them through it. Not just at the first time they see you in the marketing and they get onto your email list and then they get a sequence, but what about after that? You know, what about when it comes up for renewal time, if you have them in a subscription model? What about when it comes to buying? Yeah, we talked about premium products and services. How do they find out about your podcast? Can you set up a mailing list that lets them know when new episodes are available, and the book, getting the book's a call to action? Do you have a scorecard or a simple download of your core concept? A scorecard using something like Score App will let people self-assess and self-qualify, so that they can come to you when they're ready to have the conversation. So that's a whistle-stop tour of how you can build your brand with a best-selling book. The next steps, I invite you to join a live Q&A with me. Here is the link, but obviously I'm also going to put it in the chat because you don't really want to be scribbling that down, do you? Yeah, thank you, Maya Riyadh. Someone's put her details in there. She's absolutely brilliant. So in the, whoops, I've sent it straight to just Claire, which is a little bit pointless. There we go, to everybody. In the chat then you will see there's a live Q&A. There's limited availability for this. There's 2 groups next week and 1 the week after. If you can't make that, drop an email to hello@rightbusinessresults.com and we'll see what we can do. But this is the time to get in front of me and the team. It's free of charge. It's an hour and a half. You'll be there in a group. There'll be groups of sort of 20. We're going to go through the content creation process. So physically putting something like this together. We're going to talk about how it applies to your business. You're going to meet Ivan, Kat and Janina, the Right Business Results team who put books together, and we're going to show you what each of them are working on behind the scenes at the moment. So you'll see a book coming to life that's designed to be a best-selling book. And I'll also give you details on how to work with us. Max has the link for this. It's also in the chat. Someone's put there are no times in April, May or June, so I've obviously done it wrong. Sorry, guys. It's Monday at it's Monday at midday. I'm going to get it. Max will email you. There should be something in there for next week. There isn't. So we'll get that to you all, and join the Facebook group as well for more updates and information. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. Back over to Claire. We've got a few minutes.
That's amazing. Learned so much. It was brilliant. Really, really great hour and a half. And it went too quick. We could carry on listening to you, Georgia. So
you must be sick of my voice by now. So thank you all so much for hanging in there for the time that you did. Thanks, Claire. Really appreciate it.
Yes, Everybody did. So thank you so much for joining us, Georgia, and thank you to everybody else, especially if you stayed on to the end and joined us at Saturday School. And we'll be back next Saturday. Sadly, Georgia and I won't be back, which obviously is going to be going downhill. We don't know who's on next Saturday. I'm sure they'll be excellent, but they won't be us. So everybody have a good weekend, and make sure you get on that call with Georgia next week. Any issues, just make sure you email Georgia, hello@rightbusinessresults.com. Is that the best place for people to email you if you've got any issues?
Yeah, it is, and in the Facebook group as well. I'm in there every day. So brand building and business growth for busy entrepreneurs, or the email address at the bottom of the screen that you can see here.
Excellent. So yeah, so I think that's it. We're going to wrap up Saturday School. Go out, enjoy the sun if it's still sunny where you are, and yeah. See you next week. We'll see you soon. I'll see you in a few weeks. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.